The juvenile prison system in the Philippines. This is one of the most controversial aspects of the country's criminal justice system, marked by structural challenges, overcrowding, and inadequate treatment of children and adolescents in conflict with the law. At a time when human rights are increasingly in the spotlight, it is essential to understand how these rights are upheld, or violated, in contexts like this. Let us begin with one of the most debated aspects of the Philippine juvenile prison system, the age of criminal responsibility. Currently, the minimum age is 15 years, but in cases of severe crimes, children between 12 and 15 can be held criminally responsible. In 2020, the government proposed lowering this age to 12, sparking strong backlash from NGOs and human rights advocates. Critics argue that this change ignores the structural causes of juvenile delinquency, such as extreme poverty, neglect, and lack of access to education. The proposal also runs counter to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which encourages states to treat young offenders with rehabilitation measures rather than harsh punishment. However, the government defends the proposal as a response to the rising crime rate among youths, especially in offenses related to drug trafficking. In the Philippines, the term juvenile detention center is often a generous description for facilities that function more like traditional prisons. Although there are units called Bahay Pag-Asa, houses of hope, designed for rehabilitation, the reality is starkly different. Overcrowded, underfunded, and lacking qualified staff, these facilities frequently offer conditions that violate the fundamental rights of children. Many young detainees report being kept in cells without proper ventilation, access to clean water, or health care. Overcrowding is so severe that children often sleep standing up or take turns lying on the floor. Furthermore, there are alarming reports of physical, emotional, and even sexual abuse by guards and other detainees. A particularly troubling incident that drew international attention occurred in 2015, when street children were detained in Manila ahead of Pope Francis's visit. Authorities aimed to clean up the city, but the detention conditions were inhumane. These children were placed in overcrowded cells with no access to basic care, highlighting the cruelty and disorganization of the system. Overcrowding and unsanitary conditions. Facilities intended for juvenile offenders often face overcrowding, lack of basic sanitation, and poor living conditions. Lack of proper separation. In some cases, children are detained alongside adults, exposing them to risks of violence and abuse. Reform efforts. A glimmer of hope? Despite the grim scenario, efforts are underway to improve the situation. In December 2023, the Philippines hosted the first national conference on prison decongestion, organized in partnership with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, and the country's Supreme Court. The event sought solutions to overcrowding and inhumane conditions in prisons, including juvenile facilities. Additionally, local and international NGOs have played a crucial role. They not only expose violations, but also work directly with children to provide psychological support, education, and rehabilitation. One example is UNICEF's advocacy for legislative reforms and increased investment in child protection. Persistent challenges. Despite these efforts, the challenges remain immense. Corruption, lack of resources, and social stigma make implementing sustainable solutions difficult. Proposals like lowering the age of criminal responsibility show that there is still a strong tendency toward punishment rather than rehabilitation. Another obstacle is the criminalization of poverty. Children from poor families are disproportionately affected, often imprisoned for minor offenses like petty theft. This reflects not only failures in the judicial system, but also broader structural problems such as economic inequality and social exclusion. The juvenile prison system in the Philippines is a microcosm of the challenges faced by the country's criminal justice system. While reform efforts offer some hope, solutions require much more than isolated interventions. Systemic commitment, with investment in education, social protection and rehabilitation, as well as a paradigm shift prioritizing the rights of children and youth, is essential. As a global society, we have the duty to demand and support changes that ensure these children's rights and dignity are upheld. Manila City Jail. Location: Manila, the capital of the Philippines. One of the country's oldest and most iconic prisons, Manila City Jail faces similar challenges to Quezon City Jail, such as overcrowding and poor sanitation. Frequently described as hellish by former inmates, this prison is seen as a reflection of the state of the Philippine criminal justice system, especially for detainees awaiting trial. New Bilibid Prison, NBP. Location: Muntinlupa, Metro Manila. The New Bilibid Prison is the largest and most well-known prison in the Philippines, operated by the Bureau of Corrections. Designed to house 6,000 inmates, it often holds over 30,000, highlighting a severe overcrowding issue. Additionally, the prison has been the center of numerous controversies, including reports of drug trafficking, corruption, and luxurious lifestyles for certain high-ranking inmates. The NBP is divided into various areas, including the maximum security compound, where the most dangerous prisoners are housed. Quezon City Jail. Location: Quezon City, Metro Manila. This prison is notorious for its inhumane conditions and severe overcrowding, often holding up to 5 times its designed capacity. Photos of inmates crammed into hallways or sleeping on staircases have drawn international attention. Despite the conditions, Quezon City Jail is also a site where NGOs have worked to provide rehabilitation programs and psychological support. There have been reports indicating that incarcerated adolescents in the Philippines are often deprived of basic rights, such as access to water and proper hygiene facilities. One notable example comes from the Quezon City Jail and other similar juvenile detention centers. Lack of access to water and hygiene. Adolescent detainees in overcrowded facilities like Quezon City Jail often face severe restrictions in accessing clean water for drinking and bathing. Due to the extreme overcrowding, there are insufficient bathroom facilities, and water is rationed among detainees. They take advantage of the rain to bathe and often drink water. Inhumane practices. In some cases, adolescent prisoners reported being allowed to bathe only once or twice a week due to limited resources, while adult prisoners were prioritized for basic amenities. This lack of access worsens the unsanitary living conditions and exposes the adolescents to skin infections and other health risks. These cases underline the broader systemic issues in the Philippine prison system, where resource shortages and overcrowding disproportionately impact vulnerable groups, including children and adolescents.